So Skirk is finally here after years of waiting, and overall her kit looks pretty cool and unique. Hoyo kinda cooked here, but kind of burnt the food as well, and we'll see why and how in a second. Starting off with Skirk's kit, she's going to be a cryo sword user, and she gains crit damage as her ascension stat. Other than that, this is her splash art. This is what her name card is going to look like, and this is her signature dish. Now looking at her normal attacks, she'll hit the enemy 5 times and it's pretty cool. As for the damage, it's just normal hits. However, this does become good with her skill. Now before looking at her skill, you'd have to understand how her kit works first of all. So she's pretty similar to Mavwika. So her kit works on something called Serpent Subtlety Points rather than energy, and she gains them through her skill as well as passives. As for the point limit, at max she can have a total of 100 points, and her burst will need 50 of these points. So looking at her skill, she'll have 2 different modes, them being tap and hold. Both of them give her 45 serpent points after using it, and put simply, tap is mainly going to be your offensive mode, while hold is just for traversing around as she starts floating and moving around quite fast. Looking at a bit more about her tap mode, after tapping the skill, all 5 of her normal attacks will be enhanced and turned into cryo damage attacks. Lastly, the skill will have a cooldown of 8 seconds, which is decent. As for the multipliers of these attacks, being completely honest, they are rather underwhelming, and we'll look at those in a bit. Moving to her burst, it's pretty unique as it'll have 2 different types of bursts. A main burst that deals damage and a special secondary burst that buffs her skill's damage. Talking about the actual burst first, just like we discussed before, it's reliant on her serpent points, and you need a minimum of 50 points to use her burst. As for the burst damage, rather than dealing one massive hit, it hits the enemies quickly multiple times, similar to Keqing. Also, every serpent point she has above 50 will buff the burst damage by almost 30% of her attack, and she counts up to 12 points this way. So if you use her burst at 62 points, you'll do way more damage than just using her burst at 50 points. Now looking at her special burst, her original burst gets converted to this after you tap her skill. And how it works is, after you click it, it'll activate without consuming any serpent points. However, your burst will still go into a cooldown. Now what it does is, after using it, she'll enter a special state, which lasts as long as her skill lasts, and when she hits an opponent with her normal attacks, that normal attack will deal increased damage. She'll also automatically absorb all nearby void rifts, and if she absorbed any void rifts while in this special state, her normal attack's damage will be further increased based on the number of rifts absorbed. I know you might be confused with what these are, so it's just things from her first passive. Now that that's done, let's look at all her multipliers at talent level 10. As for her talent leveling priority, you'd want to level up her skill first, then her burst, and lastly her normal attacks. Now, before going further, now that you saw the multipliers and know how her kit works, like what the f did Hoyo do? Skirk is literally from the abyss. She doesn't even live in Teyvat like other normal people, and she's the disciple of one of the 5 sinners of Conria, who literally keeps this big-ass whale as his pet. Now, usually when you hear stuff like this, the first thing you're going to think is, yo, Skirk will be the most powerful character in Genshin yet. Wrong. Her damage is quite literally the same as Ayaka's, if not less. For an analogy, it's the same as if aliens finally visit Earth, and while everyone's thinking they'll be super smart, the alien pulls his phone out and starts scrolling because apparently he has brain rot. As for why they lowered her damage so much, it's probably to keep the game balanced, but then again, was that really necessary? This aside, it's really not that she's super bad or anything. She's good, but it's just that it'd be way more fun if Hoyo kept the character's playable version lore accurate. It would also give the characters more life. Now talking about her passives, her first passive is the passive that helps her create void rifts. So when you trigger any reaction related to cryo on an enemy, a void rift will be created near this opponent. You can only create void rifts this way once every 2.5 seconds, and what these void rifts do is they'll grant her 8 serpent points every time you collect one, and you can have a maximum of 3 void rifts at once. Now to collect these, you can either use her charged attack on an opponent, use her special burst, or while floating in her skill hold mode. In her second passive, every time a Hydro or Cryo party member deals elemental damage, Skirk gains an effect called the Death Crossing for 20 seconds. You can have a maximum of 3 stacks of these, and what these do is each stack increases the damage dealt by her normal attack by this much and the damage dealt by her burst by this much. Her last passive increases all characters' elemental skill level by 1 when all party members are Hydro and Cryo, and there's at least 1 Hydro and 1 Cryo character. Now, all of that might be a lot to take in, so let's recap it in short. This is Skirk. Her skill had 2 modes. Tapping was for DPS, while holding made her float around. As for her burst, it had 2 modes as well. You could either use it normally or use it to make her deal more damage through her skill. As for her passives, her first passive allowed her to create void rifts. Her second passive gave her stacks of buff whenever Hydro or Cryo party members dealt damage. And the last passive increased the team's skill level by 1 when everyone was Cryo and Hydro. Going to her builds, for her weapons, you'd want to use her own signature weapon. As for the weapon itself, it gives a decent crit rate at level 90, and passives revolve around buffing your equipped character's attack. If you won't get this or pull for it for some reason, then some 5-star alternatives for her are going to be Heron Geppaku Futsu, Primordial Jade Cutter, Mist Splitter Reforged, and Absolution. For 4-star options, you can use the Finale of the Deep, the Black Sword, or the Wolf Fang. As for her artifacts, you can pre-farm her signature artifact called the Finale of the Deep Galleries. It's the new artifact set that recently released with the Collective of Plenty, and is located over here. As for the stats of the artifacts, you'd want attack percentage on Sands, attack percentage on Goblet, and either crit rate or crit damage on Circlet. Just go with whichever piece has better substats here. As for the substats of the artifacts, you'd want crit rate or crit damage, attack percentage, or flat attack. Now, for her team comps, she's a Cryo main DPS, and her kit limits her to Hydro and Cryo teams. And if you'd like to main her, you definitely need Escoffier, since without her, she loses a significant amount of damage. So normally her teams are going to be something like this. You'll have Skirk, me, Yelan, and Escoffier. Or you could use something like Skirk, me, Shinha, and Diona. Once again, I'd suggest you get Escoffier, as without her, she loses 50% of her damage. Finally, going to her constellations, starting with her C1, her first constellation just buffs her first passive, as now after absorbing Void Rifts, she'll deal 500% of her attack as cryo damage to any nearby opponent. Her C2 improves both her skill and her burst, as now after using her skill, she'll gain 10 extra serpent points, and along with that, after using her special burst, her normal attack damage in her skill mode is also increased by 60%. As for her main burst, the maximum serpent points she could use for the buff will be increased from 12 to 22, so now her burst can use up to 72 points and give even more damage. Her C3 increases her burst level by 3. Her C4 improves her second passive, as now every stack of Death Crossing you get also increases her attack by this much, respectively. Her C5 increases her skill level by 3. Lastly, in her C6, it'll again buff her first passive. So what it does is, every time Skirk absorbs a Void Rift, it'll grant her a stack of Sever. You can have a maximum of 3 stacks, and they can do different things. So if you use her burst, she'll consume all 3 stacks, and every single stack deals 600% of her attack as cryo damage. Or if you use her normal attacks in her skill mode, she'll consume 1 stack of Sever when her 3rd or 5th attack hits an opponent, and what it'll do is hit the enemy 3 times, and each hit will deal 150% of Skirk's attack as cryo damage. Lastly, if Skirk takes damage while she's in her skill mode, 1 Sever stack will be consumed to decrease the damage taken by 80% and attack nearby opponents 3 times. Again, each hit dealing 150% of Skirk's attack as cryo damage. Now, as for her best constellations, C2 is going to be her best constellation, followed by C1. So lastly, is Skirk worth pulling? Well, she's definitely one of the most unique cryo characters we've seen, with some solid synergy for Hydro and cryo comps. Her animations are nice, her playstyle is fluid, and with the right support, especially Escoffier, she can almost solo anything, but she isn't without issues. Her multipliers are underwhelming without constellations, and she's extremely reliant on Hydro/cryo characters. On top of that, her best performances often rely on 5-star supports or her C2, which isn't exactly exactly low investment friendly, so if you love her playstyle or her lore, she's definitely usable and very fun. But from a pure value perspective, she's not a must-pull. Casual players might find her too demanding, while dedicated fans with the right setup can make her shine. You can't really expect her to break the meta unless you're going all in.